Yeah, can you see my screen? Hare Krishna. Is my screen
Yes,
visible? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. We'll start with the Mangala Charana and then we'll get on with our class. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjala Shalakaya Chakshurum Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Aham Shri Guruhu Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagara Jatam Sahaganas Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vishneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. So today we will be looking at, we finished chapter 5 last week, and we begin the chapter 6 today. And chapter 6 is titled The Yoga of Self-Control or Dhyana Yoga. And with this chapter, we'll actually be completing one section of the Bhagavad Gita. As all of you know, the Bhagavad Gita, the 18 chapters, are spread across broadly 3 themes. The first 6 chapters deal with Karma Yoga, working in devotion. The next 6 chapters, 7 to 12, will talk about Bhakti Yoga, how everything should culminate or should be done in devotion, and how should one do that. And what is the purpose of doing that is what we will look at in the second section. The third section is all about Jnana Yoga. So this chapter with Dhyana Yoga, we will be completing the section on Karma Yoga. Okay. And the Lord, the great teacher that he is, he doesn't leave any stone unturned. He has spoken a lot about karma, that is work with devotion. But then there are a whole lot of people who would also want to kind of get into another path, which is all about taking into account austerities and engaging in all forms of penances, and just move away from this world, which anyway is a place that has a lot of misery in all shades and forms and shapes. And, each one of us go through different experiences in this world. So they say, when this world is so much full of all this, why should I unnecessarily, work in this kind of an environment, which is so toxic, which is really not necessary. So therefore, they want to just get on with the time that they have on hand and take that rigorous path, which will ultimately also lead them to engaging with that Supreme Brahman. So the Lord doesn't leave that part, open, doesn't close out that path for people. He says, okay, now let me explain all about what is Dhyana Yoga. What is real Dhyana Yoga? What is that process of meditation? What does that process of meditation entail? What are the components of that path of yoga? And then leaves a lot for us to contemplate, reflect, and think through. And every now and then, he also expresses his opinion on what is something that every living entity must engage in. So he leaves it as an opinion. He doesn't force anything. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, you will see nothing is really forced upon us. everything is explained and we are allowed to think aloud on each one of them and help ourselves. So that's why Bhagavad Gita is really a self-help manual. It's called a manual because every manual is something that will help you to help yourself. So Bhagavad Gita is a manual, therefore, for us to manage our life, to lead our life well. Because all of us, none of us come free of problems. Problems are going to be there. And as I said, it comes in all sizes, shapes, and it's there. It's like wave. If you're in an ocean, there's going to be lots of waves every now and then. The weather, the climate changes, the weather is not the same. So life is also like that. And if you remember in the last chapter, there was a comparison given to the soul, saying that the soul lives in the body of 9 gates. Similarly, if you compare the body to a ship, the soul is the captain of the ship. As long as the ship doesn't have any form of kinks or it doesn't have any cracks, the ship stays afloat. But the moment there is any kind of a crack or a hole that develops, all kinds of unwanted things will get into the ship and the ship will sink. Similarly, if we allow all kinds of thoughts, see, thoughts are going to come again in different sizes, different intensities. So if we allow them to come, endlessly, what happens? The ship of our body also will sink. And with that, the Atma also sinks. Because what do we want to do? The Atma actually is very pure. But because of the various things that we have actually pumped into the Atma by way of the mind, the intellect, and also through the body, the poor Atma is struggling. And if we again don't allow or let that Atma to cleanse itself and make it easy, make the path easy for it, it's really going to, absolutely feel suffocated in the kind of, the way we engage it in all activities. So our endeavor, being the superior energy of the Lord, our endeavor, and particularly being in the human form, we have this great opportunity to get this jnana from all these scriptures and also have the wonderful association of people who are engaged in the awakening process that is so important for the Jivatmas to reflect, contemplate, like the ISKCON movement that Srila Prabhupada has given us. It's really helped people across the world, not just in India. See, we as Indians actually are very fortunate because all these great scriptures were born from this land. But the way Prabhupada took it across the world, because, we can't live in an isolated, world. We are interrelated. So we are all one across the world. Everyone is an Atma. Everyone, at the end of the day, has the ability and as well has a right to purify themselves and go back home, back to Godhead. So everyone has a right. It's people call, things like fundamental right to live. I think the fundamental right of liberation exists with every Jivatma. Okay. So therefore, with that, I want to now proceed to this chapter. But one thing is very clear, even this chapter also, the Lord is going to talk about the mind and as well as mind control. Desires are like waves. And only when the body, mind, and intellect is able to face those desires in the right way, that is, entertaining those desires in the right direction, if you kind of, allow the desires to just grow and grow, it will actually be detrimental. Therefore, we must check the wave-like desires with that real ability and as well as that determination to manage them well. See, desires today, one Prabhuji was saying, desires by themselves are not bad. But when the desires are going to lead you to the wrong thing and contaminate you and corrupt you and lead to all kinds of perverted activities or perversions, that's when it is bad. But if the desire is more for welfare of all jivatmas and also knowing fully well that every endowment is by the grace and the mercy of the Supreme Lord, then automatically those desires will find a way and means towards the direction of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, desires, the quality of the desires, the quantity of the desire, and the direction of the desires has to always be kept in check. It's not only for, for normal people, but it is said it is also same for those people who are a lot more spiritually advanced than many others. So with that, let's move to this chapter. I think there are some nice things in the slide. So let me take you to the slide and then we'll come here.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, one doubt.
Yes,
one doubt, like in the chapter, it has been written Sankhya Yoga, right?
Yeah. Sankhya,
in the book.
Sankhya here, what he's saying is it's going to give you the philosophy of Dhyana Yoga. Okay. Sankhya is philosophy, no? So here the philosophy of Dhyana Yoga is what the Lord is going to explain. So it is, yes, it is Sankhya, and it is the yoga of Dhyana or the yoga of self-control or Dhyana Yoga. Okay. Okay. So now there are some nice things in this thing. We'll look at this deck and then we'll get back to Veda base. Okay. There are a lot of reading today. We'll try and see how much of the purports we can cover. Hare Krishna. So this chapter has around 6 sections. We'll try and finish. I've planned for at least 19 verses today, but we'll see how much we'll do. So the first section is about how to advance in yoga through detached work. Okay, detached work, the Lord has spoken a lot about in Karma Yoga, where he said, do your work, but without attachment, and which is what we know as the Nishkama Karma Yoga. So he's going to talk that with reference to the Dhyana Yoga as well. Then 6.5 to 6.9, the yoga ladder is explained, where from the lowest level to the highest level. Then how does one practice yoga? This is the Dhyana Yoga. How does one practice Ashtanga Yoga? This is going to be explained up to verses 32. Then 33 to 36, the necessity of controlling the turbulent mind. Why should you control the mind? Why can't the mind go wherever it wants? The mind is a free thing. Why can't it go? Let it go the way it wants. So he says, why should you therefore control it? What is the need to control the mind? And Arjuna asks a question. He says, okay, he hears all about Ashtanga Yoga. He says, oh, this is a very, very difficult, path. What would happen to someone who has taken to this path, but then is unsuccessful? What would happen to such a soul? Does it mean that they have lost out? So the Lord will explain with a lot of examples as to why anything done with a clean heart for the sake of achieving that supermost consciousness, the divine consciousness, never goes waste. And then finally he says, who is a topmost yogi? He gives the characteristics of the topmost yogi. And that's how this chapter ends. So 6.1 to 6.4 is all about Ashtanga Yogi and as well as Nishkama Karma Yogi. Both of them, he says, engage in a detached way. And all towards advancement or progress on the path of liberation. So here, detachment comes to one who realizes that he's not autonomous in his action. So only when we know that what is it that drives us to doing things, it is that energy from someone who's far more energetic than us. The moment that understanding comes, or that awakening, that we get closer to that awakening, detachment automatically develops, is what the Lord says. And it is true. And it comes only with abhyasa. It comes only with practice. It comes only with sadhana. It doesn't come with reading, but it comes only by way of putting that knowledge to practice. And why does it come? Because one knows very well that nothing can move without the sanction of that super Lord. And there are three elements to everything. One is the jiva is full of, we as jivatmas, we are carrying desires, so much of desires, a bag full of desires, right? All of us have all kinds of desires. Some could be for knowledge, some could be for wealth, some could be for, their own, advancement in any field, or their own upkeep, their good health, their own family, their children, so on and so forth. Now, all these desires can only be fulfilled only when it's sanctioned. And the super soul within us sanctions it to the extent that it has to be sanctioned, or sanctions it to the extent that the jivatma can bear with it. And how does it get implemented? It gets implemented through the various energies that are there in the nature. That is called prakriti. Right? So there is a desirer, there is someone who's sanctioning it, and there is an implementer. So these are the three things that goes into a desire getting fulfilled. Okay, so that we will read in the verses that we will look at. So here, one who purifies his vision and activity by Nishkama Karma Yoga can make further advancement by practice of meditation on the super soul by Ashtanga Yoga method. So there are two ways of going about this. One is, you have done all your activities. So here the Lord is talking about the karma sannyasi that we read in the beginning of the chapter 5. So once you are done with all your duties, and you're doing it in a detached mode, then you really are able, you build in that capacity in you to get into that form of meditation. That helps you to focus well, because you've done your duties. And while doing your duties, you have completely, not had any kind of attachment to all of that. You did it because you have to do it. As a parent, you have done all your duties towards your children, to your family, to your society. If you're holding positions of importance, yes, fulfill all the duties. And you have done it all fully in a detached mode. And after some time, you feel this is enough. Let me take another route. Let me get into the process of meditation, which is only about me and that connect that I want to build with that Lord. And many people have done that. There is one, I have one mentor, he's a Guruji in ISKCON, he's in the US. He teaches a lot. And his name is Pran Govind Prabhu. He was actually a diamond merchant in the US. And he fulfilled all his duties and responsibilities. And then finally, completely, moved to the other path of sannyas. And he's not only a great teacher, but absolutely a wonderful human being. and his reflections are something that comes only because of the experience that he has been through in the material life, and now, of course, he's the spiritual platform. So therefore, that is one route that one can take. Or one can continuously be a Nishkama Karma Yogi also. That is also possible. So Lord is giving us various options, as I said. Now, what does this meditation mean? By meditating on the super soul, one can develop devotion to him in Bhakti Yoga. So ultimately, whether it's Nishkama Karma Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, that is the route of meditation, ultimately it's all about Bhakti. The end result or the destination of Karma, Jnana or Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana is Bhakti. Understanding that Krishna, he is the supreme enjoyer, he is the controller, and he's a best friend. And he's a friend to all. So the connection between chapter 5 and 6 is, as the knowledge increases, you get detached with the physical body. And as that also happens, and it gets combined with jnana, through these scriptures, it helps you to kind of elevate that consciousness. And that consciousness, that elevation, leads you to that connect with the super soul. Yeah? Unless that elevation or that consciousness rises, it is not possible for us to kind of focus on the Supreme Brahman. So all this takes time. We can't be impatient about it. It takes time. But however, if we remain focused, it certainly happens, because it has happened to a lot of people. And I'm sure with the little experience that many of us are going through, we can also feel the changes in ourselves. And that is what should inspire us to stay connected. And as it happens, I think you will not even know where we started and where we are. We will not even have that little comparison, because it becomes a way of life. The change automatic. For example, when a child grows, from a toddler to from being a small baby in the arms of the mother, and then starts crawling, and then starts walking. I don't think the child realizes what the child went through at all. So similarly, any form of transformation, also when the transformation is real, there is nothing that will make you feel, oh, I've changed, because that change is so real. You don't get to feel it. You don't get to, you don't see it as a difference in you. It's only in the initial stages we'll see all those differences. But as gradually as it gets strengthened, or as it matures, I think that feeling doesn't come at all, because it becomes a way of life. Yeah. So before practicing advanced stages of Ashtanga Yoga, one is purified by the practice of Nishkama Karma Yoga. Therefore, Lord Krishna glorifies Nishkama Karma Yoga in the first two verses. So we will now get to the verses. Hare Krishna. So 6.1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Anashritah karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyah. The Blessed Lord said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. And he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty or performs no work. So the Lord is very clear. He is saying, look, you can't remain without doing anything. Work is something he holds to the, to the highest, he gives the highest level of importance to work. That he is very, very clear. And I think it's very clear to us also. We have crossed 5 chapters, and it's a consistent message that he's giving in the context of Arjuna's confusion that started in chapter 1. It is the same message to all of us, because we also have that same kind of confusion. Very often we feel, oh my God, this is so difficult. Should I really go through all this? Work is so difficult. There are so many challenges as well. Should I really do this? Should I not do this? Why should I get into something like this? I want to run away from this kind of situation. I don't want to really be seeing all these people. We often go through, we feel that very often, right? In whichever profession we are, we face challenges. But here what the Lord is saying is, running away is not an excuse, or is not an option at all. And challenges that we face cannot be given up, cannot be used as an excuse for running away. And that's not something, he says, is going to really lead us to anywhere. Because the mind is so powerful that even if you run away, it's going to have that recall. It will keep recalling. It's only when we have exhausted all of that, or only once we have completely, gone through that experience and have faced it with determination, is when it will not bother us. As long as we don't get to doing it, it will definitely keep bothering you, and it actually becomes an impediment in the way of your progress. Yeah. So I want us to read the last verse of this, the purport of this last of this verse. Just give me a minute. We'll go to chapter 6. Dhyana Yoga. Yeah, can we read from here? The sannyasis sometime artificially think here. Prabhupada's explanation is beautiful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes, Rajpriya Mataji.
The sannyasis sometimes artificially think that they have become liberated from all material duties, and therefore they can cease to perform Agnihotra Yajnas, fire sacrifices, but actually they are self-interested because their goal is to become one with the impersonal Brahman. Such a desire is greater than any material desire, but it is not without self-interest. Similarly, the mystic yogi who practices the yoga system with half open eyes, ceasing all material activities, desire some satisfaction for his personal self. But a person acting in Krishna consciousness works for the satisfaction of the whole without self-interest. A Krishna conscious person has no desire for self-satisfaction. His criterion of success is the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus he is the perfect sannyasi or perfect yogi. Lord Chaitanya, the highest perfectional symbol of renunciation, prays in this way. Mataji, please continue.
Yeah.
The Sanskrit verse.
Yeah. Na danam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagat isha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavatat bhaktir ahai tuki twayi. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor to enjoy beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. What I want is the costless mercy of your devotional service in my life, birth, and afterbirth. So what Prabhupada here says is that, sometimes sannyas, people often, and he repeatedly said this, sometimes people just take sannyas because they think, this life is not easy, or it's full of misery. So why go through this? Let's give. But he says, sannyasi also, in many of the verses he has said, even a sannyasi, even in the sannyasi, state, one has a lot of work. But the work is more towards, is very spiritual, and it involves, helping others to reach that spiritual realm. It is not that a sannyasi can just stay, okay, I've become a sannyasi, everybody come and serves me. No, they have to also, engage in a lot of activities that involves different set of work, but not the same as you and I do for our homes and for ourselves. That's about the difference. Their work that they do is for the welfare of the welfare of all the people who want to engage in spirituality or who want to get into spirituality, and as well as work towards spreading that Krishna consciousness to a lot more people. So that is how Prabhupada, he gives us a sense of what this verse is. So whether you take to sannyas, whether you are a karma yogi, you have to be engaged at work. You cannot actually say that, one path is no work, another path is all work. Every path that you take actually has to have work, and that work, the way, the content and the engagement of that work just varies. One is for self, and the other is for involves a whole society. But one where there is work at the self level, that is, at a grihastha level or at a materialistic level, he says, renounce or get detached yourself from the fruits of those work. That is also as equally good as the results that the sannyasi gets. Okay? Hare Krishna. So we'll go to the next verse. Hare Krishna. So here, yeah, I think these two slides are nice. Somebody wants to read this? These two slides are really well made. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody wants to read this? Hare Krishna.
I'll try, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Please, Mataji.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare
The eightfold yoga system emphasizing on the control of the mind and the senses very difficult, especially in the age of Kali. The Lord emphasizes on karma yoga or Krishna consciousness. Better as all living entities are constitutionally parts and parcel of the Supreme. Should work with the Lord always in the mind in absolute surrenderness. Must work in cases what
Krishna
Mataji?
Yeah,
Krishna
Krishna
consciousness.
Yeah.
As though we are obliged to him. The parts of the body work for the satisfaction of the whole body. The living entity working to satisfy the Supreme and not self is the perfect sannyasi or yogi. Sannyasis presuming they are liberated from all material duties and stopping Agnihotra yatnas, that is fire sacrifices, are imperfect. The desire to become one with the impersonal Brahman is greater than any material desire.
Yeah.
Can I continue, Mataji?
Yeah.
Mystic yogi also performing yoga with half open eyes, stopping activities, is also an imperfect yogi. The living entity working to satisfy the Supreme and not self is perfect sannyasi or yogi. Sannyasis, presuming they are liberated from all material duties and stopping Agnihotri yatnas, that is fire sacrifices, are imperfect. That is same thing has been written the previous
repeating. Yeah, it's repeating. Yeah.
Their desire to become one with the impersonal Brahman is greater than any material desire. Mystic yogi also performing yoga with half open eyes, stopping all material activities is also an imperfect yogi.
Yeah. So this is a summary. Hare Krishna. This is a summary of that verse. So both the sannyasi and the mystic yogi are self-interested, because ultimately they're only looking at how do I just attain that Supreme Brahman. Whereas here, a Krishna conscious person or a person who's doing everything for Krishna is actually doing it for the satisfaction of Krishna. There's no self-interest. You got the difference? A sannyasi gives up everything because he wants to attain Krishna. Whereas here, When you're doing anything that you're doing as part of the profession that you have, you're doing it for the satisfaction of Krishna. That's a difference. You're pleasing, you want to kind of please only Krishna. You do a thing because you want to ensure that Krishna is happy with it. So when that is your aim, you will never do anything which will dissatisfy Krishna or displease Krishna. And that is great, because that is what helps the wheel of this entire creation to run smoothly. If each one of us, decide to stop working, how will the universe run? How will the system operate? If everyone decides, okay, you know what, sannyasa is the best and let me all take sannyas, what will happen to this world? So therefore, one who works with Krishna in everything and sees Krishna in everything is a perfect sannyasi or a perfect yogi. So a Krishna conscious person is actually a sannyasi too, is actually a mystic yogi too. So this is what Lord Chaitanya said, and we read that in the previous purport. I'm not going to read that again. So now the second verse, he says, what is called renunciation is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with Supreme. For no one can become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. Whether one takes it to sannyasa yoga or the yoga or the Ashtanga yoga process, one has to give up the desire for sense gratification. If that desire for sense gratification lingers on, then they are going to fail. Whereas one who is in that complete surrender to Krishna automatically uses his body, mind, and intellect towards doing things that will satisfy Krishna, or that will help him to advance his interest in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So, I've just marked a few lines in the purport, and if you have read the purport, if you have the book with you. So, Prabhupada says, real sannyasa yoga or bhakti yoga means that one should know his constitutional position as a living entity and act accordingly. The moment we realize that we are no different from that Supreme Lord, or we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, sorry, let me change that. We are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, then we do not see ourselves as independent. We see ourselves as a dependent entity of that Supreme entity. And then Prabhupada, towards the latter part of in the purport, he says, if one is unable to give up the activities of his selfish nature, then jnana and yoga are of no avail. As long as the selfish interest in us exists, either in the form of, oh, I'm doing this for this. Even a sannyasi and a mystic yogi, Prabhupada says, does it because he wants to attain that liberation. There is a self-interest in that. So when for example, let me give you an example from our real life, So, I'm in my midlife. So, if I'm doing, say, if I'm doing some service to my parents, and I'm doing it because I think it will get me punya, then there is a selfish intent there. That will not give me moksha. That will not give me liberation, or that will not get counted as punyam at all, is what we understand from these verses. But when I do it as a sense of responsibility, and also do it with that complete knowledge of the look at the responsibility as a desire of Krishna. Krishna desires me to do this service. Then the self-interest is not there. I'm doing it for Krishna. I'm doing it because Krishna has given me that opportunity to do some service to my family and to my parents. You got the difference? If I do it, both are same. You, at the end of the day, you're doing service. But one service you're doing because you want to get punya. Because you think, oh, that will help me in getting, some kind of a, what do you call it? I'll get all the blessings of the Lord. There's selfishness there. But if I'm doing it because Lord has given me or accorded me the opportunity to serve, let me do the service well and do it for His satisfaction. I'm still doing the service, but there's a difference. There's no self-interest there. You got the difference, Hare Krishna?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, so the real aim is for a living entity to give up all the selfish satisfaction and to satisfy the Supreme. So when the satisfaction goes away from your self-interest to satisfying the Supreme, the entire balance changes. Okay? Okay. So 6.3. So here he is going to talk about the yoga ladder. So arukshor muner yogam karma karanam uchyate yoga ruddhasya tasyaiva samaha karanam uchyate. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who's already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. So which means in the beginning, it is only by way of work we'll be able to slowly progress, or take those progressive steps towards elevating ourselves towards that, attaining that supreme consciousness, or get ourselves to that stage where we will be able to build the determination to focus on the higher consciousness or that advanced consciousness. So in the beginning, we have to all engage, or whether you take to sannyasa, whether you're taking it to the Yashta Yoga Anga system or the karma, initially it's only through work that we can progress. Why work is important? Because he says, do the work for the satisfaction of Krishna. That is the initial stage of getting into the marga of bhakti. So staying away from work is not something that will help you to kind of progress on bhakti. Bhakti can only be attained only when you are constantly engaging in everything that you do, all for that sake of satisfying that supreme consciousness. So yoga aruksha is the initial. That means where you are building, or where you are practicing to do things without ego. Slowly you have to let go of that ego. That ahankaram, The more that I possess, the more is going to be the attachment to the work that we do. The moment we are able to slowly get over the ego, he says that time you can give up all your material activity because there's no ego. You can give up the material activity, but he's only talking about material activities. Please understand. The same activities will persist, but they will be in the spiritual realm. That's the only difference. At no point in time is action being taken away from us. We have to constantly be engaged in activity. The type of activity will change from material to spiritual. That's about it. But otherwise, it remains. Action is not something that can be stayed away from. Okay, you understood? There are two things. Yoga aruksha is the first stage, where work is the way in which we will engage in progressing or furthering our bhakti. But once that ahankaram, or that the doership or the proprietorship or the lordship over the work that we do goes away, or slowly, wears away from us, we will slowly reach to the highest level, which is called yoga. It's called yoga aruddha. Yoga aruddha is the last stage where you have completely have control over over your ahankaram, or you have no ahankaram, and your body, your sense organs are in your control. They're not disturbing you. Your mind is fully in control, and you have that single-minded focus on that Supreme Lord alone and nothing else. So that is called yoga aruddha. The first stage or the first step in the yoga ladder is called yoga aruksha. Okay. So somebody wants to read this? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
The process of linking a living entity with Supreme God may be compared to a ladder. This ladder takes one to the topmost spiritual realization, begins from the lowest material condition, rising up to the stage of perfect self-realization. The ladder may be divided into three parts: Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Beginning of the ladder is the Yoga
Aruruksha
stage, and the highest rung is the Yoga Aruddha. Following Ashtanga Yoga, situating oneself in meditation, perfect mental equilibrium to control the senses is achieved. All disturbing mental activities cease. But in Krishna consciousness, one is always meditating on Krishna, constantly engaged in the service of Krishna, when all material activities are considered to have ceased. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So, the first one is working without self. Working without self means where you are working selflessly. And the last stage is you're working on yourself. You're working on yourself so that you can have that.
Mataji, one doubt here.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
otherwise at the end I may forget that. See, the previous slide you said about the three ladders, right? The previous slide.
Yeah.
No, next one. There you said the ladder is divided into three parts: Jnana, Dhyana, and Bhakti. Yeah, then where is it karma coming? The fourth point.
Ladder, it says ladder may be divided into three parts.
Okay. Okay.
One is Jnana, Dhyana, and Bhakti. So, and whether you take to Jnana or Dhyana, in the previous verse, he said, if you remember, he said, work is said to be the means. Work is said to be the means for anybody who's engaging in any of the yoga, any of the yoga slabs, whether it's karma, jnana, or dhyana. You know, you cannot stay away from work. Is in the beginning for everyone. Work is the mean, but that work needs to be done without attachment. Once you have completely garnered that, that control. Or, you've reached that egoless stage where you are, in as much as, whatever people do, even some of the very advanced spiritual masters, that ego, giving up that ego doesn't happen. It takes time.
Yeah.
So they've also gone through the process of, winning over their self-ego. So in the beginning, whether it's karma, whether it's jnana, dhyana, or whatever, that detached way of working, keeping the I outside of oneself, is what one needs to work on. And that takes a long time. That's why, the Lord is again and again emphasizing that is the first step. The second, once you have really mastered that, and once nothing of this material world matters to you, at that time, you've really reached that level where you can completely concentrate on that Lord or take up to meditation. So then you're working on yourself. So first is working without the self, working to detach the self. But once the self is detached, when I say self, the self is the individual soul and the ego of that soul. Once that is detached, then you're working on yourself, or your connect is between you and that Supreme Brahman. Okay. So following Ashtanga Yoga, situating oneself in meditation, perfect mental equilibrium to control the senses is achieved. All disturbing mental activities cease. Once you have no attachment to anything, your mental activities cease. But in Krishna, but now he's saying, this is for, see, why he said the yoga ladder, he's saying jnana, people who want to take to jnana, dhyana, and towards bhakti, for them, is what he's saying, do this. But for one on Krishna consciousness, when you are always thinking of Krishna, it doesn't really matter whether you are the yoga aruksha stage or the yoga arudha stage, because for you it's always Krishna, whether in the beginning or as you advance, it's Krishna all through. So whatever you're doing, even if you're engaged in material activities, you're doing it for Krishna. You're going to be doing it without any attachment, and whatever comes out of it is for Krishna, and you're going to be, engaging all the things that, all the profits or all the things that come out of it for the sake of, helping Krishna consciousness. So that's the difference. This is only for the people who are, pursuing jnana and dhyana. That they have to really be worried about, okay, fine, let me now work so that, I can get control over my ego and my, I can get detached from this material world and then get there. But for one who actually, has Krishna always in his thoughts and always in everything that he or she does, it doesn't really matter. All these yoga ladder has no meaning for them. Or doesn't it's only for those who are pursuing those mystic yoga process, or that process of, they really want to get onto the sannyasa marga very fast. It's for them, they have to do all this rigorously. But when Prabhupada says, when it's Krishna for you, every time you wake up in the morning, you call Krishna. When you're doing something, you call Krishna. When you're ending your day, you call Krishna. So such a person, he says, this route or this ladder is inconsequential. So the ladder of spiritual development. So this is Mataji.
One more thing, Mataji. Yeah. Now that see, dhyana and bhakti, actually, those who are into dhyana, automatically bhakti will be there, right?
May or may not be, because if you really look at it, it depends on how well they've been able to control. Even in dhyana, if they're really, really, advanced, which will be one in several millions, maybe, or, or billion, I don't know. See, so far, how many people we know are dhyana yogis? We have heard of one Shankaracharya, right? He was a dhyana yogi, right?
Oh, that level. Okay.
So where? After that, did we hear of any such yogis? Ramanujacharya, Madhavacharya.
Okay, understood, Mataji.
Kahan the wo log and where are we, na? So that is they are the real dhyana yogis, na? I mean, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we read of Haridas Thakur the other day. Right? They were of a different league. Right? So abhi to aisa koi nahi hai. Buddha, of course, Gautama Buddha was also there. But now, it's very difficult. Right? And the only way we normal people is for us to constantly engage in that, that simple thought, having that thought of Krishna is what I think will help us to, to progress, or to kind of, get more and more involved in things more spiritually. So here he says the ladder of spiritual development. What is that? Step 0. Starts with step 0. Karma kandi, just being ritualistic, is 0. Frutu worker performing rituals for elevation to heavenly planets. These are people who do certain things because they want moksham. Like I told you, if I serve my parents thinking I'll get punyam, that is step 0. Step 1, renouncing the fruits of one's labor. That is karma yoga or nishkama karma yoga. The moment you say, hey, here is an opportunity for me to serve the society or serve, serve certain people or certain mission or certain projects because that's going to help towards the welfare, then that is nishkama karma. I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it because I have this opportunity to do it by the mercy of the Lord. The Lord has given me the ability, the wherewithal, the intellect, the intelligence to do something. That is nishkama karma. Step 2 is renouncing the fruits of activities and speculative knowledge about Brahman. Yes, I renounce the activities, but I also start thinking more about God, godliness, spirituality, reading of these scriptures. That is jnana yoga. Step 3 is the Ashtanga yogi. Somebody, who has crossed all these steps, renounced the actions, and also has the jnana, and takes to meditation on the Paramatma or the super soul. Starts getting into that yogi activities that typically define a yogi. That the meditation. That is step 3, Ashtanga yoga. And finally, what does the Ashtanga yogi achieve? Or the Nishkama karma yogi achieve? Loving devotion service to the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan Shri Krishna. That's bhakti yoga. Now, it's not necessary that you have to go through this process of Nishkama karma, the jnana, Ashtanga. A jnana yogi can straight away get into bhakti, because once the person has understood all about, life, he can straight away get engaged in bhakti. His bhakti can deepen. Similarly, a Nishkama karma yogi also not necessarily has to gain knowledge and go through the rigorous process of Ashtanga yoga to attain bhakti. Not necessary. There are people who can just move from the Nishkama karma state straight away to bhakti. But some people may probably follow these steps. It's not necessarily that everyone has to follow all these steps. Definitely a Nishkama karma yogi straight away can get to bhakti. Similarly, a jnana yogi, once knows what this is, also engages in bhakti. What is bhakti? Devotional service. Devotional service means working for Krishna, doing things for the Supreme Lord. That is bhakti. Even an Ashtanga yogi, even after all that meditation, unless they engage in that devotional service, they won't attain their destination. Yeah. There is still that balance of work that is still there, that they have to engage in. At the end of the day, devotional service is a must for all process of yoga that one takes to. 6.4. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for self-gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. Yeah. So once the mind has moved to the higher level of consciousness, it loses its interest in the mundane, in the ordinary. When that happens, that is when a person is said to be highly elevated in the yoga system that he or she has followed, whether it's jnana, dhyana, or nishkama karma. Yeah. So now we move into the next section, which is, any question on the first 4 verses? Hare Krishna.
Mataji, the previous slide, can you just show once again? Because one point I have to note down.
Yeah. This one, Mataji?
Yeah, this one. 1 minute, Mataji. Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Yeah. So, in fact, I would like to read out a few things from the purport on this verse. So, Prabhupada here says, when a person is fully engaged in transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself. And thus, he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or fruitive activities. Without Krishna consciousness, otherwise, one must be engaged in sense gratification, since one cannot live without engagement. Without Krishna consciousness, one must be always seeking self-centered or extended selfish activities. But a Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. right? You're doing it for Krishna. So when you're doing anything for Krishna, you're free from wanting to satisfy yourself, because everything you're doing it for the sake of Krishna. For instance, let's compare it with a parent-child relationship. A parent, when there are children growing up, I'm just typically talking about a typical middle-class family, which has, a fixed income coming, and they kind of apportion. There's a budgeting that happens. At least it used to happen in my house. I remember my father. Every month he will have a budget planned. This happens, and he apportions money accordingly, under the various heads. For children's education, then he'll put for grocery, then he'll say something. And in between, as always, life is not so perfectly doesn't run with that kind of a budgeting that you do. Suddenly one of us will ask, oh, we want something. Maybe that month he would have planned something for himself, but he does it for the sake of the children. So some budget somewhere is pulled and allocated to fulfill the children's desires. Right? So the parent actually, they kind of, they start, whatever they do it for the sake of satisfying their children. So they become secondary. So the more they engage in a month on month, something like this will keep coming. Ultimately, they forget who they are and what their needs were. So the same thing happens in Krishna consciousness as well. When you have Krishna as your sole element, or, as a sole person who you want to satisfy, you forget yourself. It's like Mirabai. Mirabai, for her, everything, the world was Krishna to her. So she never saw the palace that she was living in. Even if you kind of consider Mirabai as a real story, not real story, I'm not even looking into that. But if you really look at that whole relationship of Mirabai with Krishna, for her, everything was Krishna. She didn't even recognize herself at all, because for her, everything was Krishna. So that is the power of doing it for the sake of that supreme consciousness. When you're doing it something for someone that is more superior to you, or someone that you look up to, your own desires, they are put in control. They are set in control. Was that helpful, Hare Krishna? At least that parent-child relationship, that helped?
Yes, Mataji.
How much the parents sacrifice. They don't even say I sacrifice. I think very few parents actually say I sacrifice. They do it, and when they do it, they have done it even without them feeling that they have done it. Why? Because they're doing it for someone they love. So the moment you love Krishna, you're doing everything to kind of satisfy Krishna. So it doesn't burden you. And over a period of time, you forget, because your happiness has crossed the boundaries of yourself. You've crossed your own boundaries. So you don't matter to yourself anymore. Okay. So the yoga ruddha stage is giving up work. A yogi may even give up nishkama karma yoga when his mental control reaches a stage of regarding well-wishers, the envious and the pious and the sinners equally. So what is a yoga ruddha stage? Yoga ruddha stage is one where everything seems the same to you. You're looking at, there is no envy, there is no anger, there is absolute sublime, in your mind, and everything is, you're not agitated with anything, and neither are you worried about anything. There's no anxiety, there's no distress. As simple as that. You are at peace with everything. But yeah, now you may ask, there's a there is the catastrophe that has happened, right? I remember telling you last week, right? Joshimat, all of us are reading that, seeing in the news and all that stuff. So you may ask, when a Joshimat kind of a situation happens, can we be in that kind of a mental balance? Maybe it's something for you to reflect. I was seriously thinking, some of us probably today are living in cities and we think we are living in, good constructions and stuff like that. But it just takes a second. Imagine somebody just, telling you outside, saying that there's a cross on your building, you have to vacate your building. What all will you carry? How much will you carry? Henna? What will you carry? You will carry your certificates. You will carry your gold ornaments. What will you carry? So that is life. So the earlier we kind of, engage in the process of detachment, limit our desires, limit, the things that we kind of just grow onto ourselves. How much we hoard. We almost hoard everything in life, right? At least nowadays. Earlier, I remember when I used to go to my grandparents' house and all, everything used to look, everything used to be so empty. Spaces are empty everywhere. There was so much empty space. You could just go sit anywhere you wanted and things like that. There was so much of air coming in and, so much of cross ventilation and everything was so beautiful. But nowadays you enter any home, every nook and corner, we have stuffed it with things. What does it show? It shows attachment. What else? Okay, so the Yoga Ruddha stage, giving up work, what does it mean? Yoga Aruruksha is a neophyte. Neophyte means the early beginners. He must work because he's not detached. Because remember, we said, we saw in the previous verses that everybody has to work. Work is a means for detachment. So they have to work because he's not yet detached, not yet pure, and not yet advanced. And why must he work? Because it helps him to cultivate detachment from fruitive activities. You have to practice, no? Anything requires practice. So you have to practice, you work and practice to also stay away from the fruits of work. Practice detachment. Detachment only comes by practice. Detachment does not come unless you put your mind into it. And the third point is practices part-time asana and perhaps pranayama while engaging in karma yoga. So, yeah, doing some bit of things to keep yourself healthy so that you can work well and also practice sadhana or engage in sadhana is needed even whilst you're engaged in all kinds of fruitive or material activities or karma yoga. Now, what is the Yoga Ruddha or the advanced stage? He does not act for sense gratification. This is the advanced stage. They've given up all kinds. They have come out of all their sense gratification. They're no longer sense gratification, no longer is a core or an important element in their life. They don't engage in fruitive activities. They have renounced all material desires. Permitted to quit. So that is the stage, look at that. That is the stage where you are permitted to quit your prescribed duties. You can I take sannyas, like the way Prabhupada took sannyas after he finished all his responsibilities towards his family. He had advanced in his level of consciousness. He gave up his prescribed duties and went to Vrindavan. So Nishkama Karma Yoga can be given up. Nishkama is your material, any kind of material fruitive activities can be given up only when you've reached that stage where that sense of attachment to fruitive activities does not exist. And that is the stage where you can practice full-time yoga.
Mataji, actually, Nishkama Karma Yoga itself is detachment. That then can't be given up in the sense that it is like...
See, you don't... See, if you can continue doing Nishkama Karma, there's nothing wrong in it. But what Prabhupada is saying here is If someone wants to take sannyas, he says you can give it up once you have completely become, totally detached. That stage you give up, he says. But if you have not even come close to Nishkama Karma Yogi, he says don't give up, because your mind is still at the lower level. Your mind cannot probably reach that, cannot stay focused at the advanced level that you're trying to attempt. So unless you reach the Nishkama Karma stage, you cannot really take up sannyas. But if you want to continue on the Nishkama Karma stage, it's great, you can. But unless you reach that, you can't take up sannyas, is what he's trying to say. You got the point, Mataji? Not saying that Nishkama Karma Yoga is bad.
Yeah.
Nishkama Karma Yoga, practice it, because that's the best. That's what he's asking Arjuna to do. But Arjuna also said, I want to take up sannyas. He said, you can take up sannyas only when you have reached that level of Nishkama Karma. See, Arjuna didn't want to fight. But Lord is saying, do it for me. And give up everything that you're doing for the sake to me. So once that person has completely reached that stage, he says that they can take a sannyas. But if you kind of take to sannyas before you have reached that stage, he said you are a pretender, you become a mithyachara. Refer back to the third chapter, Mataji, where he said, someone who takes to sannyas without having exhausted all that he has to do in the material, towards all his material, desires, he says he will be called a pretender or a mithyachara.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. You can be a Nishkama Karma Yogi throughout. But if someone says, I want to take sannyas, you should have reached that stage. Without really having reached the stage, don't even try to attempt taking sannyas, because it will not succeed. You'll be like all the dongi babas who are there now in plenty. So 6.5, he says, a man must elevate himself by his own mind. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind, not degrade himself. The mind is a friend to the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So what does it mean? We have to uplift ourselves by keeping a check on our mind. We have to work on ourselves. Let's not look for support from outside of us. Very often we need support from outside. We say, oh, I didn't do well because that happened. I didn't do well because the teacher didn't teach well. I didn't do well because my father didn't get me the book on time. I didn't deliver the project because, there were XYZ some reasons. Very often we do that. So if we want to help ourselves, it has to come from within. So we have to take care of things that is there in our control. Something which is not there in control, why should we worry? Whatever is in our control, if we kind of are able to have that in place, we will definitely be far more at peace. If something is outside of you, don't bother. Anyway, it's outside of you. You had no control over it. If you're waiting for a bus and the bus doesn't come on time, that's not your problem. So why fret over it? Are you the driver? Are you the one who's managing, the route of that bus? No. So don't worry. But if you are the driver, then yes, you have to ensure that you're taking the bus, or you're taking the bus out of the bus station at the right time. And you are also able to manage the traffic well and reach every bus stop at the right time. That is something that but again, the road condition is not in your control. So why worry? So anytime we need to know that we have to, with the help of our mind, kind of grow out of our all kinds of restrictions that we place around ourselves. So to that extent, the mind can help you, and it's your best friend. So he says, Uddharet Atmanatmanam Natmanam avasadayet atmaiva hi atmano bandhur atmaiva ripur atmanah. One must deliver oneself with the help of his mind, not degrade himself. The mind is a friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So is your mind an enemy or a friend? It's up to you. You can make it your friend, or you can allow it to be your enemy and allow it to cripple your life. And then let's not blame anyone else for it. So he says, I think it's the same thing. Okay, now 6.7. Any question on the previous verses, Hare Krishna? This is a
No,
beautiful,
Mataji.
I like this verse a lot, 6.7. It's a very, very nice verse. The Lord says, for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached. For he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. So here he touches on three important aspects. All of us, we are a soul, then we have the gross, which is the body, and then we have the mind, and we have the intellect, which are the subtle elements of our body. So he says, to such a man, heat or cold is felt by what? Well, how do you feel heat and cold?
My skin and temperature, Mataji.
Exactly. So it's your body, right? That's your body. And then happiness and distress. Happiness and distress is what? What kind of a
Emotions, Mataji.
It's a
Emotion.
exactly. It's an emotion. It's of the mind, right? Emotion is of the mind. Likes, dislikes, desires. And it's very subjective. Something may make me, for example, if I see a bunch of rose, somebody may feel very excited. Somebody may feel very happy is looking at it. But somebody may feel just neutral about it. So that's more of the emotion. It's of the mind. Honor and dishonor is of the intellect. It's objective. For example, when your honor and dishonor is success and failure, when you're writing an exam, you either fail or pass. And in pass, of course, somebody does extremely well. That gives you happiness. That's the mind. But pass is pass. Pass is pass, fail is fail, right? There is more at the intellect. It's objective. This or that. Whereas anything to do with the mind has multiple number of options and it's subjective. Each one will look at it in a different way. For example, when you see fire, somebody will say, oh, it gives me warmth. Somebody will say, I can cook something on that. So each one will look at it in a different way, depending on what their emotional state is. Or somebody will say, oh my God, it's disaster in the waiting. So therefore, the Lord says, for one who has conquered the mind, for one whose mind is steady, for him, anything to do at the bodily level, anything to do at the emotional level, anything at the intellectual level, if nothing really, they're not on a high, they are completely balanced and they are level-headed, or we say someone is very level-headed. When are they level-headed? When nothing really affects them. Right? Okay?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, here 6.8 he says, a person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or a mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. It's just not jnana alone, but also putting that into practice. Acquired knowledge and as well as realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. When we don't put the jnana to practice, it will lead to nothing. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, everything is the same. And nothing matters to them. They are far ahead of all these things because they know everything is impermanent and everything is insignificant, because at the end of the day, the Atma has to find its way back home. And the only way one can help the Atma to find its way back home is to reduce the desires that the Atma is carrying. The more desires the Atma carries, the more it is going to struggle to find its way or find its way back to home, back to Godhead. Okay. So 6.9. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, the mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious, the sinners, all with an equal mind. Everything is the same. They are not partial to anything. Neither are they biased. They don't carry any prejudice in them. They don't get into these unnecessary politics of differentiating between nationalities, caste, creed, religion, all these all these kind of stupid things that we see often around the world is not something. These are really foolish people that are engaging in things which are immaterial, unnecessary, unwanted, unwarranted. Once you really understand the great knowledge that we are all reading now and put it to practice, then none of this will really seem or hold water in us. Yeah, everything is the same for them. They don't have their ahankaram at all, because at the end of the day, they know that everyone has sprung, or everyone is a child of that supreme consciousness. Okay. So we're talking so much about the mind. What is this mind? What does this mind have? This mind is very subjective. So what is it that brings about so much of disharmony, or what is it that brings about so much of disorder and puts things in disarray? Everything comes from the mind. So what is it that happens in the mind? The mind is a storehouse of all kinds of desires. I want this. I like this. And we keep thinking about that. And that leads to multiple things. It can lead to krodha, lobha, envy, moha, more and more. Mother, intoxication, madness. Intoxication does not necessarily mean intoxicants only. It's intoxication to get more and more. Well, that's also a madness. You get intoxicated to certain form of life, lust. Okay, so the 6 enemies of the mind are lust, and lust in turn leads to krodha, lobha, envy, moha, and madness. Okay. Intoxication can also be playing all these games where you kind of gamble. All that is intoxication, right? I mean, what did our friend Duryodhana do? He called them to a game of dice. And look at what happened in that game of dice. I mean, although we look at it as a game of dice, but look at the way the Pandavas, they got so carried away into the game that they did not even spare their wife. They even brought their wife into the game. So that is an madness, desire. Where did it come from? Kama, lust. So one established in self-realization by virtue of knowledge and self-realization.
But Mataji, one doubt here. See, you said that it is because of lust. Okay, but if you look at it from the other side, Yudhishthira has done it because of his dharma. No? According to him, he was saying that since he has given the word, he has to do accordingly. So how exactly you try to make it different there?
See, whatever was his, he can put it. His kingdom, he was the kingdom. But why give up the wife, yeah? She is an individual entity by herself. He had no right to pledge his wife.
But in the beginning, he has promised, no? See, whatever I have, I'll be giving it. I mean, that based on that promise only, he has that, what do you call that? The game has started. So.
But how can he give up, but he didn't pledge his brother. Okay, no, the thing is, See, how can you be? That is madness to pledge your own wife, to pledge your own children, to pledge your own brothers. You go to that, he could have put okay, fine, I've lost it. Okay, tell me I've lost the game. What do I do? He could have finished it there, no?
Yeah.
Not
so you mean that even though he is a dharma putra, you say, so he is also wrong, is what you are trying to say?
He is definitely wrong, no?
Okay.
Look at the ignominy, the shame that he put his wife to.
Yeah.
Correct?
Mm.
She's a Jivatma. You give up your kingdom, it's a different thing. Okay, the kingdom goes either by, if you lose a war, the kingdom goes to the other party. And this is also stupid, his own praja looked up to him and putting his kingdom also to something. Maybe that was a rule those days, they said, right? That was a game, that those were the kind of things that in those days it was. That's fine. But what right did he have to do something to put another Jivatma, and that to a woman, and saw her getting stripped of her modesty, and he's sitting tight? What dharma was that? That is not a dharma, no? Dharma is doing the right thing for the right cause. But here, where was the cause right?
Yeah. Yes, Mataji. Yes.
So, that is the extent to which lust. That we see happening today also. It happened, even during the, the ages, even after that, even after the Mahabharata happened, and thereafter, several civilizations came, right? Then also you found all these kind of things happening, people pledging their daughters and wives and all went on. Not that it didn't go on. Even now also, we hear such stupid things happening, right? Well, of course, it's illegal, and, once it comes to, the law takes over. But what is the ultimate? What was the seed? The seed was lust. The seed was desire. Desire to get money, desire to you show yourself as the winner. Okay. So therefore, one who's established in self-realization by virtue of knowledge does not see, does not differentiate, has no prejudice, has no bias. He sees everything as the gift of the Lord. And with more advancement, he sees honest and well-wishers, affection. We read this, okay? They don't distinguish, they don't discriminate. They're far more, grounded. So section 3 is 6.10 to 6.32, where it's all about the further stages of the practice of yoga. Krishna describes the practices of Ashtanga yoga, right from yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. The first stage, yama, is the yoga aruruksha stage, the beginning stage. And the final samadhi is the stage where you are in the advanced stage, which is called the yoga aruddha. And sadhana bhakti starts from, an advanced stage of pranayama, pratyahara, and dharana. And then the advanced stages is dhyana and samadhi. The result are the yoga ruddha, the perfection stage, and ultimately the vision of the super. This is the path for the Ashtanga yogi. So it's not necessary for a person who is already Krishna conscious to go through this process, because automatically they are in the sadhana bhakti. That's why, Prabhupada says, the japa and the 16 rounds and all. It basically to build that strength in you to be able to keep at bhakti at the center of everything. Simple. The 16 rounds is japa, the Maha Mantra is all about helping us to stay steady. And also the association by way of, all these group studies and all that we are doing is basically to intensify our sadhana to such an extent that we feel empty without actually doing it. In fact, I feel very, very, if I have not engaged in reading, or if I don't participate in some sessions, and engage in some classes and activities, I feel as if I've lost out on something, or I feel something is gone wrong in me. And I'm sure every person who is now part of these these things that we are all doing together, I think everyone feels that way. They feel something is out of them. They feel something is left out. Don't you feel? Those of you who are...
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll end here. It's going to be 9 o'clock. Though I wanted to do it, we will do it. I have a personal engagement tomorrow. So I won't be able to take a class tomorrow. But would you like to have a class in between the week or something? I'm ready to do that. Would you want it, or you want us to do it next Saturday? Next Saturday, Sunday, I'll keep for you. That I'll do.
Yeah, next Saturday only is
Huh?
enough, Mataji.
Okay, so it's next Saturday, then I'm sorry. So tomorrow I have there's a wedding that I need to attend. So some social obligations also we need to fulfill.
No problem, Mataji. Mataji, one doubt, as you only have started with that, so I mean, so many things are coming to my mind also. That is regarding that Jyotimat. No, see, you feel that everybody who is undergoing that problem are all have done some bad karma or anything of that kind. So how exactly you can explain on that?
I don't know how to explain that, Mataji, but I think it's very sad, Mataji. I don't know how to explain that.
No, I think, I mean, somewhere or the other, something would have happened to all of them, right? Otherwise, why to only the people who are staying there? See, for example, a plane crashes. So people in that plane, some escapes without much problem, some with a lot of difficulty, some goes, I mean, who dies. So die means, okay, you feel that, okay, without any hardship, you went somewhere. So all these things, how when you think about it, most, because I remember once, I think you, Mataji, or somebody, I don't remember, said that, like, when, I think you only, I feel, when Srila Prabhupada has met Queen Elizabeth, and he said that, like, see, because she has been, because of a past karma, right? So everything can be connected with that, right?
Probably, Mataji, because you see a whole bunch of people are caught up in that. So it has to do something with their past, for sure. But to get homeless overnight. But if you also look at the other way, a lot of help very quickly came in. If, say, the help was not, see, obviously, you can put a lot of blame on the administration and a lot of people who kind of, got into, allowed all these kind of activities to happen unchecked, the growth that they did unchecked and all that is what people are saying. But at the same time, a lot of help quickly, was rushed in. They've all, at least, we didn't hear of anybody, any loss of life.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Everybody has been moved to safe, to a safe place, and then, there's some compensation that has been announced, whether it's good, bad, I don't know, but something. And then the other bright thing in this whole thing is they're all also going to be rehabilitated.
Yeah, I think some people sometimes this may be a good thing for them to live happily, I mean, later.
Maybe.
So that also came. So that may be like because of their more dedication to Krishna, or maybe doing something good. That can also be, right? Yeah.
Certainly no, Mataji, because see, it's a temple. The Jyotirmay temple is there.
Correct,
so
correct.
See, the temple is sinking. But God didn't let them, there is a problem, but then he ensured that everyone at least has been moved out. They'll get a better place. And, it has happened to the whole place. So the entire place, there is going to be focus on that. And everyone will definitely, I hope, I pray to Lord that everyone gets to start their life well, and everyone is well taken care of, and, everything good happens to them. But the way, I mean, you're making me think, actually, Mataji, the way it is happening now, I feel probably it's some blessing also. It is not entirely, it is bad, but things could have been worse. Anna?
Yes, Mataji.
It's not like Ukraine, no? Look at Ukraine.
Yeah. No, even that also, like last day we had one conference in our college. Some foreigner came to a college. He was speaking about the problems those people are facing. There's somebody saying that Poland, he was talking about. So there, what the government has said is that every house, they have to take some 2-3 Ukraines. They don't have any migrants, what you call the camp and anything like that. So maybe sometimes some Ukrainians, this may be a good thing for them. See, staying with somebody's house, getting a support from them, so that the life is going to change. Maybe the hardship which they have undergone previously, nobody knows what all, even though their own land, maybe coming to this place, it may be good for them also. You can't say that everybody is undergoing the same problem. Or at that moment when they leave the country, maybe definitely you will think that, okay, everything is going to be bad. But sometimes it may going to other place, it may be good for them, isn't it? So all may not be bad. Yeah.
Yeah. But one lesson that I think it's for most of us is that keep yourself as light as possible, because if a Joshimat can happen, it can happen
anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes,
it just shows how how weak
we are.
You know?
Yeah. We think that we have done so much, this, that, and all. See, one small what you call shake is enough, we all will immediately fall down.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you. What all will you carry, Mataji? You will carry your certificates, you'll carry some money, you'll carry some credit. What? You'll carry charger. Huh? I remember, I used to work for COVID during when the COVID was at the heights, when things were really, so we had formed a lot of self-help groups and all that. So we were helping we were part of the Bangalore Municipal Corporation and the hospital, the government hospital network. As soon as someone turns positive, we immediately used to move them out if they don't have the facility, right? So we should tell them, carry your charger, carry your mobile phone, carry your basic medicines, and I know how much of stress the families used to go through. Because how much, you don't know whether you'll get some people will say, some people from good homes say, no, we want an independent. What independent? If you get a bed, you should be happy. We used to tell them,
What exactly you do, Mataji?
No, I was at that time, we were doing, we were supporting all the COVID patients.
Oh,
3 years ago, during the first wave and the second wave. We were part of the doctors network and all that. So we had all kinds of...
NGO you are running?
Huh?
Some NGO you are running?
No, Mataji, all, that time, the Bangalore, this one, the BBMP had asked for volunteers, called for volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
So we all signed up across Bangalore. We all signed up, Mataji. And now, of course, the group doesn't operate. It operated at that time. No, I'm just telling you, so it was like, my God, we didn't even know, whether the person will come back home or not. It was terrible. Those days were just terrible.
Yeah.
And you were allowed only a small bag. So what all will you carry in your bag?
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, a Joshimat happens, like, what all will you carry? Your certificates? What do you carry? Anyway, Hare Krishna. So anyway, the Lord, at least, now with the help of these, Prabhupada and the Bhagavad Gita, at least, we are able to talk and we are able to show solidarity with people who are suffering, So I think that is a great transformation Bhagavad Gita has brought in us, right?
Yes,
So let's pray for the welfare of everyone. Hare Krishna, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So let's have all the people of Joshimat and all similar people who are suffering everywhere in the world in our prayers. So Hare Krishna, we'll meet next Saturday. Okay.
Yeah.
And since the numbers are what time is 7:30 okay for you, or should we start a little early?
It's correct, Mataji.
7:30 is okay?
In our correct time.
Okay.
Correct.
Hey Krishna,
I do have one question.
Yes, Mataji.
Attendance, Mataji.
Attendance, shall I post it in the thing? I'll post it in the group. The same link that day I had posted. No, I think it should be the same one.
Okay.
I'll post it, Mataji. Yes, Rajpriya Mataji, you have a question?
Yes, Mataji. Mataji, I believe that in every yuga, there were some complications. Like people like Ashtanga yogis like Sankaracharya and Gautam Buddha, they also faced some kind of problems and complications. So what made them different from other devotees to involve themselves in that practice of Ashtanga Yogi? Hare Krishna Mataji.
See, they had no material attachments, no? They had no material attachment. They were focused on their goal. And the Lord says, if once you are focused and you surrender to Him, He will personally help you through all your difficulties. He says, Ananyas chintayanto ma me jana paryupasate tesham nityavayuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. I will not only preserve what you have, He says, I will also fill in whatever you lack.
Absolutely, Mataji.
Yeah. So they derive the strength from their inner, from that inner, their strength was their, that strong connect they had with the Supreme.
I feel they are avatars of Lord Krishna.
Yeah, they are
Avatar.
avatars of Lord Krishna, but they were not Krishna themselves, right? They were avatars of Krishna.
Yes, ma'am.
It was Krishna who came with the, with all the 64 qualities, right? He came, the source came in the complete, the powerful, Vishnu came in as Krishna himself, right? I mean, they say Krishna is superior to Vishnu also because he had 64 qualities, right? But see, every avatar went through its own challenges. I agree with you. But it was the determination of those elevated souls and the control that they had, I think, helped them see through all kinds of challenges that came their way.
Yes, Mataji. Mataji, when we talk about pretenders, means someone is pretending what they are not actually, right? So, Mataji, if someone has pretending to, I believe it's very important that someone has decided at least to pretend also.
Oh no, don't say that. They pretend and they take others for a ride. There's one Nityananda, right? We have heard of him, right?
Yes, Mataji.
अरे बाबा ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए यो नहीं ऐसा नहीं
I'm saying from like a student point of view that sometimes we pretend like toppers, and it gives us at some point not the first position but second and third position. It happens, like pretending, fake it till you make it.
Achha,
It works.
Smile.
That is not on the spiritual platform, right? You are doing it because you don't want to show the other person you're weak, right?
Yes.
There is
Yes.
there is that whole, I'm sure you also must be, since you're an athlete, you'll know. There is a thing about, I think it was the two tennis players. I think this guy, Becker, had this, had a habit of twisting his tongue in a certain direction when he was going to take a shot take a particular shot. So the opponent noticed that, and he used to keep looking at for that particular, expression of his, to find out, gauge which direction he will have his shot done. So definitely what you're saying holds good in terms of showing the other opponent, saying you're strong, you're not a weak person, right? So even if you're losing the battle, you want to say, I'm still strong, so don't take me for granted.
Yes,
Right?
Mataji.
That is different. But fooling people by saying I'm a sannyasi and wearing a robe and, that is not a thing.
But when they opt for these things, they are obviously surrounded by some bona fide sannyasis. So that association will definitely help them to attain something.
See, any of these people who are bogus are surrounded by bogus people only. And then who falls victim to it? The weak people whose mind is weak.
Actually.
Yeah, whose mind is weak and they're looking for some support and they feel, oh, this is going to give me support, and they fall, to their false promises or false things that they say. Right?
Ma'am, Mataji, at this point, I would like to say something. Like, see, I have read somewhere, I mean, when I was a small girl, see, when you are fully dedicated to the master, in the sense, the guru, see, what, even though as you said, the guru is a bogus person also, since you are fully, I mean, dedicated, committed to that, you will be blessed. In the sense, like, I have read somewhere, like, when one guru is, I mean, like, has to pass the river. So he just was able to walk, and I mean, like, think something was there, and he was able to cross the river. And then the guru said that, "Hey, you just come." Because of the full dedication, I think it comes part of Shankaracharya's story also. It comes, but not only that, otherwise also, because the disciple, because he's fully dedicated to the master, he didn't think too much, because my master has told me to do this, so I am doing it, and he was able to attain it. So see, when you talk about the people like the bogus sannyasis, even though they are bogus, the people who are fully committed, who doesn't know anything about it, but don't you feel that they will be blessed? Because in case if they are fully dedicated to the master, and it is almost like, I mean, like how they are fully dedicated to the Lord. I mean, how you interpret that?
I don't know how to interpret it, but if we have to really make that, that what do you call it? We have to do a little bit of sanity check of who this guru is, and what kind of a, we read about the disciplic succession, right? What kind of, what school of thought they have. And such people are easy to gauge. There are very many of them. It's not difficult to kind of find these people out.
Yeah.
It's not difficult at all. See, if you really look at, I can only now our association with ISKCON is all that we know, and we can only talk about that. And none of the elevated people or the advanced Prabhujis and Matajis within the ISKCON, they will always say, look up to Srila Prabhupada and his books and his and the things that he has asked us to follow. None of them say, come follow me. No. Nobody.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah. So what you say is that even though you are fully dedicated, but at one point of time, you'll understand that, isn't it? You are going through the wrong path. Yeah.
yes, you will understand that.
Yeah.
See, there is something called, we're all, sentient beings, right? We all know, can make out from somebody's looks or gauge or by the touch or whatever, we'll know what is what. So if we are not, that's why I said, the Bhagavad Gita keeps talking about how you can elevate yourself from within. Become strong is what the Bhagavad Gita says. Don't look for the strength outside. Look for the strength, because you have the abilities to become strong.
Yes, Mataji. Now it's clear.
The strength is within you. Why are we often look at, we need support from outside. No, the strength is all within us. We don't look within us. We always say, I want somebody else to come and help me. Yes, look for help. I'm not saying don't ask for help. But if you are strong within, you will know who is more stronger than you, who can really help you. You will not go to the wrong hands. Right?
Yes, Mataji.
It's definitely a long way. I think, we are just the beginning of our spiritual journey and a spiritual path. So it will take us time, but I'm sure that faith in the Supreme, or that unadulterated faith in the Supreme will see us through, will help us cross through turbulent weather. Yeah. Okay. So thank you